What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast Podcast. Today, we'll be starting a new series where, with the anticipation of the trade deadline in February and so much trade talk happening right now, I'll be taking 3 players per episode and putting together trade packages for them, giving my justification and seeing how their lineups would alter in the process. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who players you want to see in future episodes. Let's dive straight into this. So we'll head over to Milwaukee to start this video, as despite a rocky start to the season, the Bucks have been great as of late, but still need some more depth around Damian Lillard and Giannis to be able to be a real threat in the Eastern Conference against teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. So we'll send Brook Lopez and his expiring contract alongside Pat Connaughton, a 2026 first and a 2031 first, in exchange for Cameron Johnson and Day'Ron Sharpe. So, obviously, Milwaukee's doing this deal because they're getting off Brook Lopez as an expiring contract, and he's really only getting older, slower, and worse, and they have no center depth under the age of 28, where Day'Ron Sharpe fills in, who hasn't really been getting much minutes on this team anyway. Cam Johnson, though, is a perfect fit for this team, as his 3-and-D abilities will be able to slot in either in the Taurean Prince spot in the starting lineup or join alongside Prince and move Giannis to the 5. Johnson's going to be able to give that space into Giannis to be able to dominate the paint, and he won't require the ball in his hands, so allowing Damian Lillard to still be that primary ball handler. As for Brooklyn, the reason why they're doing this, well, getting draft capital. That 2031 first via Milwaukee could be extremely beneficial, given that Damian Lillard will probably be retired by then, and Giannis Antetokounmpo might not even be in Milwaukee. As for Sharpe, he's not even really getting any run in Brooklyn, so giving him up only opens up room for Noah Clowney and Nick Claxton to get more minutes on this team. And obviously Cameron Johnson's a tough loss, but you're getting the draft capital. And I think Jalen Wilson has a legit threat to be a real contributor for this Brooklyn team. And, they'll probably drop in the standings by losing the production of Johnson, but that also gets them in place to be able to go after a Cooper Flagg or an Ace Bailey if they're able to jump that high in the lottery. If this trade were to happen for Milwaukee, this is how I would do the starting lineup. Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton at the guards, Cameron Johnson and Taurean Prince at the forward positions, and Giannis at the center with Bobby Portis coming off the bench. I feel like this is the best way to optimize Giannis' talents, as you're giving 4 players that can all space the floor, and Cameron Johnson and Taurean Prince are both 3-and-D forwards that don't need the ball in their hands to make an impact. While I don't know if they're able to contend with the likes of the Celtics with this trade, you never know that if Damian Lillard and Giannis get hot, they could really be a threat to make another run for the NBA Finals. Now we're going to head over to South Beach. Jimmy Butler's been a player that's been in trade talks a lot this week, and I think instead of setting him to a team like Houston or Golden State, where it may be a preferred destination, I think the ideal fit for each team would be sending him to the Memphis Grizzlies in a 3-team trade. I'd have the Miami Heat, Memphis Grizzlies, and Denver Nuggets in this deal with Desmond Bane, Zeke Naji, a 2025 second, a 2026 firsts, and 2028 first heading to the Miami Heat, with Jimmy Butler and Dario Saric heading to the Memphis Grizzlies, and Brandon Clark heading to the Nuggets. So why is Miami doing this? Well, Jimmy Butler seemingly wants out of Miami, and with him being able to opt out of his contract with his player option at the end of the season, the value isn't going to be that high for a 35-year-old star. But I think Desmond Bane is one of the best shooters in this game, and he's only going to help Tyler Hero be a better player on the perimeter, as the two can help space the floor better for Miami than Jimmy Butler does. As for Zeke Naji, he's a player that can help match salaries and be used as a potential salary matching in a trade piece. As for the 3 firsts, I think it's great value for Jimmy Butler, even though those firsts will likely be outside of the lottery. So why does Memphis do this deal? I think Jimmy fits perfectly into Memphis's identity of that defense and hard-nosed basketball that, Marcus Smart and Tony Allen and others have brought over the years. I think it provides Memphis with shot creation that is far better than Desmond Bane and kind of takes the pressure off Ja Morant and allows him to stay fresh and ready for the playoffs. As for Memphis, they could have a starting lineup of Ja Morant, Jimmy Butler, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson, and Zach Edey when healthy, and have elite bench play with guys like Scotty Barnes, Gigi Jackson when healthy, Santi Aldama, and so forth. As to why Denver does this deal, their non-Jokic minutes are terrible, and Zeke Naji has been a terrible extension contract for them. Clark gives them an efficient scorer who's an above-average defender who could not only play in the Jokic minutes when he's off the floor, but also play alongside him. I'm going to continue this trade for the Miami Heat, as I'm going to send Terry Rozier and assets from the previous trade of Zeke Naji, the 2025 second, and one of the 2026 firsts to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Malcolm Brogdon and Marvin Bagley. I think the reason the Heat do this trade is that Terry Rozier has not been the fit they've looked for alongside Tyler Hero, while Malcolm Brogdon's a guy that can play defense, shoot threes, and doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. For the reason why I think Washington does this trade, Malcolm Brogdon and Marvin Bagley are already expiring contracts, and they're able to get draft assets and a player in Terry Rozier, who hasn't been great in Miami this season, but if he's able to turn it around, they could flip him into assets, and since they're already one of the worst teams in the league, there's no problem in taking a shot on potentially getting more assets. As for how I'd see the lineup shaping up for each side, for the Miami Heat, I'd have Malcolm Brogdon and Tyler Hero as the guard pairing. I'd have Desmond Bane and Haywood Highsmith as the forward pairing. I'd have Bam Adebayo at center with Duncan Robinson coming off the bench. As for Memphis, as previously mentioned, I'd have John Morant and Jimmy Butler as the two guards, Jalen Wells and Jaren Jackson Jr. as the forwards, Zach Edey at center with Santi Aldama at six-man. I think Memphis has a lot more flexibility with the lineups they could do with players like G.G. Jackson and Jay Huff potentially getting moved into the starting lineup. As for Miami, I think this is an ideal team to be able to be a real threat in the playoffs that we've seen them in the past, as the lineup makes a lot more sense than their current one. For the last trade of this video, we'll head over to Phoenix, as we'll send Jusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, a 2026 second, and a 2031 first to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Nikola Vucevic, Javon Carter, and Chris Duarte. So why would Phoenix do this deal? While Vucevic doesn't solve their defensive points in the paint problem, he's a far better version of Nurkic that can shoot the ball from an elite clip from behind the arc, as he's up over 40% from three this season. Duarte would likely be waived in this deal, but Javon Carter would return to Phoenix to contend for the backup point guard job and be able to provide stellar perimeter defense when Phoenix needs it. As for giving up that 2031 first, it would be tough, but Matt Ishbia has shown us in his short time in Phoenix that he has a willingness to do whatever it takes to win now. As for why Chicago would do this deal, Grayson Allen's the prized possession in this deal, as he's an elite 3-and-D role player who, if Chicago doesn't see them being part of their future plans, they could play him, develop him, get his stats better, and be able to turn him into an Alex Caruso type asset as they did with OKC to get Josh Giddey this offseason. As for Jusuf Nurkic, he's there to match salaries, and Chicago could either look to dump him in 2025 or let him walk in 2026 when his contract expires. As for that 2031 Phoenix pick, it would be extremely valuable given that Durant and Beal will more than likely be retired or off the team by then, and it could potentially be up to a top 5 pick. As for how I do the lineups for each side, it looked pretty similar in Phoenix, with Tyus Jones and Devin Booker at the guard positions, Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant at the forwards, and Nikola Vucevic slotting in at the center spot with Royce O'Neal as the sixth man. As for the Chicago Bulls, I'd have Kobe White and Zach LaVine at the guard positions, Grayson Allen and Patrick Williams at the forwards, Jusuf Nurkic slotting in at center, with Josh Giddey moving to the sixth-man spot. I think for Phoenix, this is one of the best offensive lineups in the NBA, while you still have guys like Ryan Dunn, Royce O'Neal, and Javon Carter to be those defensive threats you need off the bench. As for Chicago, I think this makes more sense moving Josh Giddey out of the starting lineup in favor of Grayson Allen to be able to put the ball in the hands of Zach LaVine and Kobe White more, even though Kobe White could be a potential trade candidate this season as well.
Just to clarify, these are not deals that have been rumored, but rather ones that I think make the most sense for each team. If you want to see a player involved in a future trade video, make sure to comment their name below and potentially a team you want me to see them move to. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content on the channel. Cheers, everyone.